So I just decided to do a checkout this evening. I said, let me greet friends, family. It's been a while we've not seen, right? I don't know those who've been seeing, but it's been a while. Not seen lots of people, lots and lots of people. So I just said, let's share the evening greetings and remind ourselves that we're still all alive, right? So earlier on today, I made a post, and my friends, some of my guys, were like, hey, but where did you come from? But let me say thank you to those who reacted to that post. Let me say a very quick thank you to you, Montani. Yeah, made a very strong comment about it. And I was like, okay. Means that this was worth a conversation, right? Oh, Lord. Yeah. So, today actually is not about the conversation, but we did some work today with equipment and say, let us try a test and see if they are working properly. So we decided to do the test. I'm doing the test here because of maintenance work that we did and decided to do this test. If you're my friend and you're following, anytime you join us, please let me know if you got the sound, because that's one of the difficulties we've been having working sometimes. And then, well, those of my people said that the difficulty in sound was as a result of bad internet. But we thought that it was important to improve on some areas of the sound so we can do a test like this. If you're following, please, you can do a check for me. Let's see. And then also we had issues, a couple of other issues that we had. And so we just decided that let's do this test run and see how it looks like. Okay. But in the meantime, to continue to share greetings with everyone, friends who've always been there, following us, talking to us, sharing good moments. There are lots and lots of you who comment on the content that we share. And I was telling somebody the other day that principally, some people like me, who may not be on the internet for purpose of content, or for those people who do content creation. No, it's not everyone who does that, maybe for the purpose of pay. Because if we get a massive following, what happens is that we eventually get our own business community, our own small community where we can have to do our things, right? So, because there are lots of limitations for us this way. There's either issue of country eligibility, you have to put this one up, put this one down, go left, go right, before you can eventually start receiving $1 and $2. Yeah. No, but there are people who are intentional about it. We must give their flowers to them. Lots of people are very intentional about issues of content creation, and but then the comment I wanted to talk about, or that I shared, and then somebody was like, some people were like, oh, I said, well, there are a lot of things that come into play when we're discussing politics, and truly, the candidate is important. Yeah, but lesser and lesser in our context, the message is becoming less important. It's really becoming less important. Because if you are reading hilltopvoices.com, you realize that there's an article which I wrote, I don't know whether it's 2 days back. And we're challenging quite a lot of things. The candidates are not talking about. The things they are not talking about, or they are just being very shallow about it. Some of them are just being very sketchy about those things, and I'm like, is this really where we should be? So, I don't know whether the message to you is making sense, but there's a lot of messaging problem, which may not be general per se though, but I think that the messaging still needs a lot of attention, really need a lot of attention, because there are many of the people who are just there. and you really can't tell exactly what they want to talk about, exactly what they are talking about, or what they are truly talking about in this business of elections. Okay, and so if you're following our content at Hilltop Voices, we're asking the crucial questions like, whether beneath the spectacle, voters are still left wondering on the most urgent national questions. We're asking if candidates are offering solutions or skirting around these issues. And what are some of the issues we're talking about? We want to check. There is that famous H. That very famous H. I realize that it's the concerned party that started talking about it, but let's not go into it. Let's not go into it. Did you also know that that's a no-go area for media people? Did you know that? Yeah, I've heard people say that. But I've also heard some very strong statements on reforms. Remember, we had written some articles previous to the official campaign period. We had time to write some articles on the presidential question, the things they needed to be answering. And one of them was about issues of reforms, especially electoral reforms or institutional reforms. And one of the things we shared that still continued to remind me is the issue of the National Accounting Commission. I've realized that till now, no candidate has spoken about it because a major call for concern. Even they themselves are going to elections. They are not acutely aware that this is the commission that will decide whether they will move forward in this business or not. And we wrote that article. Some people said, well, the article was too strong. I said, yeah, but that was important. And I'm surprised that till now, we're having very little conversations around it. And it's very, very disturbing. So, personally, I think that the candidates needs to, this candidates and this election business, they actually need to sit over it and try to look. If you remember very well, in that conversation, we actually said, hey, somebody just called me Shay, and I remember that I didn't come with a cap. All right, but that notwithstanding, I'll tell Buri to look for the cap and bring. There's another old version that we always have in the office. Okay, who can use this one? I can use this one, right? I can use this one. I'm not done yet, guys. I'm live, so allow me to do this business first. So I was talking about the issues of institutional reform, which to me constitute a very important element in this conversation. And I'm surprised that many of them are really not talking about it. Okay? Yeah. So just confirm to me, Hillary, if the sound is good. We're actually just testing a couple of equipments to be sure that our sound is good and enrolled in this conversation as well. Thank you very much and welcome to joining us. Most of the candidates are more of confusing the electorate with irrelevant messages and slogans without any roadmap. It feels bad to see opposition candidates condemning or criticizing each other instead of making us understand how they intend to secure and protect votes. That's an important element, Hillary. I don't know what's happening, but I try to make the system in a way that I can generate our chat so that we can see it on the screen, but it's appearing to be a little difficult. I'll try to get that done shortly, but that's exactly what we worked on today. I wanted to try that system. So welcome very much, Alicia. We're happy to see you. Welcome to joining us. And so, if you read, this is an important article which we wrote and wanted us to reflect on it, because you also realize that, well, I listened to Patricia Tomai Nondamjoya. She plushed around the 2-round system for presidential elections. Then she talked about the shorter presidential terms to reduce it. I don't know whether she said from 7 to 5 or thereabout. And then the Court of Auditors. I didn't really get her message around that. And then I listened to OC, or rather Cabral. I listened to Cabral speak about credible change, promises of new roles to ensure fairness. But I really think that no one is addressing this issue of ELECAM, Constitutional Council. That these are institutions that many people have said they are partisan over the years. And so why have people just become very comfortable with it? Well, that's their business. And then I hear everybody talking about issues of peace. But if you listen to the specificities, they are really very thin, like in thread. Do you listen to Buba Bello? Because he's talking about inclusive dialogue. I mean, there are other people who say they have had inclusive dialogue. So if it is that kind of inclusive dialogue they are talking about, is it the one that can provide the peace? OC talks about 100 days to end the violence, right? The violence. And then he says that it will take like 3 years to be able to solve the political components of the conflict to assure peace. And then there is the north, there is the east and other parts of the country. And then Akere, before we joined, actually insisted that there was need for a national conversation and a transitional government. But when you look at it, you see that these are all sketchy, big sounding words, very sketchy. But beyond these pledges, there is very little clarity on how the resources, the justice, the reconciliation would be managed in practical terms. Okay? I mean, these are my concerns. I don't know what your concerns are. You can just leave a comment for me and we'll share as well. You can share the comment. Okay. Okay, brother, thank you. That with the cap, I'm complete. Okay, thank you very much, bro. Thanks. It was important that we have this cap. But don't worry about the color of the feather. The color of the feather is something for another day. We'll hold a meeting over that one. So thank you very much, Alicia. We're happy to have you. Thank you again, bro. Hillary, thank you. I hope you've been watching status like me since morning. Don't watch status, finish. Now time for wrestling. So good. Okay, so we continue to look at some of the issues we're concerned about that we're seemingly not hearing too much. I listened to Dr. Jacques Habe. Dr. Jacques Habe is actually an expert. He's coming from the IMF. He has a very strong background in issues of economics. I listened to him. He spoke, and, well, I think I followed him on Equinox TV, and he said a lot of things. He emphasized on economic reforms and anti-corruption measures, drawing with his background from the IMF. Yeah. But like I said, the details are not, I'm not hearing numbers. For example, when I listen to Cabral, when Cabral talks about creating jobs and industrialization, some time ago I actually heard him breaking down a lot of figures. He talked about the Glencore issue where he said he could push to get about 11 billion out of it, 11,000 billion out of it. That's a lot of money, I mean. Then he talked about reducing state expenditure, talked about this. He tried to be able to mention some key figures, but like I say, sometimes you look at the depth of it, you keep asking the questions that, how practical are some of these things? Across the field, we keep having lots and lots of issues. Really. I don't know whether you are also keen on the opposition figures when they complain of actually imbalance in the media. Have you monitored coverage in the media? You realize that the ruling party has a lot of coverage, especially on the state broadcaster. A lot of copy. I mean, we sat over that the other day and eventually realized that while other media organizations have like two stories on the state broadcaster, the ruling party had like 20 or thereabout. And you can even check online. You can go to Cameroon Tribune and check. You realize that before you see one post from the opposition, you have like 9-10 from the ruling party, So it is a lean, it is a tilt. My brother and friend, To Sylvester, actually left a long comment on that article when we wrote that article, on the issue of the tilting of the media towards the candidate. But what sometimes is of interest to us is that the people who are charged with regulation, if it were the private media doing that, you hear people come for the private press. But now, When it is the way it is, nobody will talk about it. So, I mean, we're just keen. We're just being curious why it is that way. But now, what baffles me the most is that no candidate is talking about it. I don't hear anybody complain. Remember, we got up on that day, that famous 27, and just saw billboards everywhere. I got no idea whether the opposition people don't have money to print billboards or what, but the fact that we just saw them everywhere and on all the major billboards. So if an opposition wanted to put theirs, where would they put it? It's a little scary though. So you see the presence. And so this media space, the battle for media space is so important and nobody's talking about it yet. I think I listened to Cabral talk about it on his business with the young people and youth voters promising that kind of orange operation kind of thing he was talking about. And then Patricia as well also speaks of inclusion. And then when you listen to Osi as well, you hear him talk of employment, indicating that unemployment is actually a national security concern. This is very true. You listen to him say that. Now, let us look at the concrete plans to integrate young people into governance. Do you see that? The decision-making processes or the party structures, are you seeing the intention? Are you seeing a clear plan where the young people get themselves into all of these things? They still continue to get missing. Asset declaration and anti-corruption, you hear them in speeches. Namjoya is on it very seriously, talking about the application of Article 66 of the Constitution. Akere actually repeatedly denounced the manipulation of CONAC reports, in relation to his Glencore thing and the rest. But you realize that candidates globally have not been able to explain how they would actually safeguard the independence of the anti-corruption bodies or prevent politicization of these institutions in the country. I don't know whether you're seeing it like I'm seeing, but to be honest with you, it's of great concern. It's of great concern that at this time we're not hearing conversations like this. We hear promises about jobs, better governance and electoral reforms. We hear them in speeches. But some major issues like climate change, this is a global conversation. Even issues of LGBTQ, you don't hear it here. Whether they are for or against, you don't just hear it. They are just silent about it. Then issues about climate change, you are not hearing at all. These are global conversations. You cannot be indifferent to them. They are conspicuously absent from the center of our conversation. And don't forget that the country as a whole is actually facing very recurrent problems of floods. Remember, our city has recently just been hit by floods and we have a casualty. But you know about the far north, the shrinking Lake Chad and the deforestation in the south and the east. It's so catastrophic. And then the climate change conversation is not there. So it's a little disturbing that we are having no that kind of coherent climate change strategy. No proposed thing how to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability. I'm not getting it at all. If you are getting it, please share with us. You can leave a comment for me. I will gladly take it. Okay? You can just leave a comment or continue to share in this conversation. There are very important things that I expected to have been hearing, but I am not hearing. I don't know whether you're hearing. If you're hearing, please let me know. Okay? Did you hear someone talk about foreign policy as well? I've not heard any very major thing or some serious thing on foreign policy. Their silence is even louder than the word itself. So they are really very quiet about it, because I've heard some vague references on sovereignty, independence, candidates. You're not hearing them talk about Cameroon's role in the Central African sub-region, And the relationships with Nigeria are becoming very funny. Even participation in the African Continental Free Trade, you are not hearing it. The participation actually in the African Continental Free Trade area, you are not hearing it. And so, with regional insecurity, with Boko Haram, to coups in neighboring countries, you are surprised that even the next president is not having such a thing to be talking about, because you must define this very strongly. And you must take a very clear diplomatic posture on matters like this. Well, I can't say much about education because I've not heard much as well. I've heard things about empowerment, youth empowerment, but with very scanty detail. If you read some of the articles we did on the presidential questions that needed to be answered, we actually raised concerns about issues of education, infrastructure, how many children are finishing primary school, how many are not finishing, what would be the strategy to ensure that at least 100% of the children who go to primary school graduate from primary school. 100% will be challenging. Accidents can occur, some may die, but at least 95%, that's an acceptable number, right? Infrastructure in rural areas is just crazy. I don't know whether you've been to my village. You pity the children. Most of the surviving institutions are mostly owned by the Roman Catholic Church, and I don't know, some private individuals are making some effort, but away from that, we know that these are very expensive ventures for parents, right? So, I mean, we expect to hear things being discussed in this line. Issues of learning outcomes, the kind of outcome that can help in transforming the economy, and then the digital divide between rural and urban schools. I mean, I was just talking about that. It's just crazy. So please let me hear. If you have a comment to leave for me, you can just leave it. I'll be ending soon. My intention was just to do something for like 20 minutes, but I've gone past 21 minutes. So I mean, we can just try and finish very quickly, right? But I would just encourage you to read www.hilltopvoices.com and pick up a few things. Do you remember the COVID-19 pandemic? Yes, that was another area that exposed a lot of potholes, a lot of lacuna in the entire health system. You know, and you notice that the whole place was just, yeah. Well, I really don't know how much to say, but to say that the lessons from COVID, they look like they have just faded away very fast. People have just forgotten about them. But our health system is fragile. It's fragile. Heavily underfunded. If you read again another article that we did on healthcare, according to the WHO, we're supposed to have one medical doctor for 1,000 citizens. But in our context, it's one medical doctor for 50,000 citizens. It's crazy. Really crazy. Hospitals are heavily underfunded. You have persistent shortage of doctors, which we talked about. And, I mean, for nurses, just leave it there. And you've done all the leading candidates. You've not had anybody put forward a detailed plan for universal healthcare access or anything. We've heard the Minister of Public Health talk about universal healthcare access some time ago when they started the campaign. But, I mean, the weaknesses are sufficiently there that it can provide enough conversation for opposition candidates. And so why are they not talking about it? Well, oh no. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, just to thank you again and to say that the intention of this stream was just to make a quick test of some recent work we have done with the equipment and to be sure that it works properly. If you follow the sound and if by your judgment the images are good, please leave us a comment. I want to show gratitude and thank you very much for being there. Thank you very much and goodbye. Continue to enjoy the rest of the evening. If you are around my time zone, it will be evening for you. But there are people whose time zones are in hot afternoons and doing other things. So I want to thank you very much. I'm going to stay here a little bit, just waiting for those who will want to leave a comment about the subject of discussion. But let me share with you that link to that article so that you can see it. Oh, thank you very much, Elvis. Look up. Yeah, the shrine is doing well. The shrine is doing well. Let me drop that link to the article so that if you're interested in reading, you can conveniently go look at it and so that you remember some of the things we're sharing. Okay, so you don't forget. It's an important conversation, so you can push people to say the things that really matter. Because I hear a lot of shallow things. The things that they are talking about are too shallow for my liking. If you follow presidential elections elsewhere, you will understand that there are more serious things we need to be talking about. Yeah. I mean, but now, let's conclude. The last few minutes, we're concluding with our submission that we have three fundamental things when candidates are going for elections. Number one, You have the candidate. What is the candidate made of? What is the stately character of the candidates? What experience is the candidate bringing to the table? What is the candidate having that can make the candidate stand out? These things must be properly marketed in such a way that all of us can say, well, this is the pedigree, this is the substance in the candidate presented by party X, by party Y, or so on, so on, so, right? Yeah. And you know that generally, incumbents always have a certain level of comfort when it comes to this area. Yeah, because, I mean, they have lots of things already to talk about, to be their scorecard, right? Yeah, they have a fat scorecard to present, always. So, when it comes to the candidate, but then other people make a difference because of their state experience, their experience in working with international organizations, their work in other places, and so you can see from the candidate what is in that person as an individual that the person is bringing to the table. Now, I talked about the messaging, true. I wouldn't want to tell you who by my assessment the messaging is sounding proper to me. But you agree with me that messaging is also an element. What are you bringing? That's what we were interrogating a while ago. In their messaging, are they addressing the issues that ordinary people want to hear? Yeah? You know, so that is the messaging component that we're talking about. What are you bringing to the table? For Akere, his messaging was clear. Anti-corruption. For OC, his message is seemingly generalist. He's talking about anti-corruption, talking about healthcare, talking about social security. He's talking about a couple of things all put together. For Cabral, it's about the young people coming along in the governance process. In Tomaino Ndamjoya, it's about reforms. It's about inclusion. For Chiruma, it's about the transition. Just like his very good friend Bello, it's about the transition. So, I mean, the messaging is very important. How it is delivered now is a thing for another day. But you can see the massive deployment from other people. This is where media comes in. You can have a proper message and it's not properly delivered. It is not properly packaged for delivery. Right? So you can see that in terms of exploitation of the media space, you can see that some candidates are making maximum use of it. They are doing sports. They are doing live streams. They are doing TV. They are doing front pages of newspapers. They are doing, you know, and you can feel it. And all of these things, trust me, it's paid for. This is what you may not know. I mean, some of them are largely paid for. They are largely paid for. So it's also about a lot of money. But the most important part is the machinery. I have less than 2 minutes. So the machinery is the most complicated. Huh? When you hear, we talked earlier on about the reforms issues that no one is talking about. That includes the National Counting Commission or Constitutional Council, ELECAM. This can constitute part of the machinery for the sitting government. When you hear an opposition tells you that they want to have in all 36,000 polling stations, they want to have at least 2 polling agents representing their party. That is the machinery. That is part of the machinery to ensure that their votes are not stolen. When you hear that a political party is planning maybe to do real-time vote collation, that is a machinery. So the machinery, the basic element, I'm explaining that part so that those who are asking me questions what machinery means in my earlier post today can understand. So the machinery is a massive infrastructural approach towards vote collection and transportation, as well as tallying and proclamation. The machinery that should be in that business is the one that is seemingly more important even than the candidate and than the message. Let me thank you very much for your time. Please leave a comment if you found anything useful, or if you need any inquiry, I'll definitely come back from it. Goodbye.